Today we are going to study Italian Neo Realism. Italian Neo Realism. What is it? It is an Italian cinema movement or a film movement. It refers to, Italian Neo Realism refers to an influential film movement. A film movement which had a deep impact in Italian filmdom or Italian film world. It is an influential film movement which flourished in Italy during the period from 1942 to 1952. 1942 to 1952, a period of 10 years, it developed or it flourished. Luchino Visconti's an Italian filmmaker. Luchino Visconti's film Obsession, which was released in 1942, heralded this movement. It welcomed this Italian Neo Realism movement, which was the Italian film that announced the coming of Italian Neo Realism. Luchino Visconti's film Obsession, which was released in the year 1942. It heralded or it welcomed this Italian Neo Realistic movement. Luchino Visconti di Modrone was an Italian theatre, opera means musical drama, and cinema director, as well as screenwriter. Luchino Visconti di Modrone, that is his full name. We should understand it to be Luchino Visconti. We should call him by Luchino Visconti. Was an Italian theatre, opera and cinema director as well as screenwriter. And his famous films are The Leopard, which was released in 1963. Death in Venice, which came out in the year 1971. Rocco and His Brother, which came out in the year 1960, in which our superstar Mohanlal was born. Then La Terra Trima. It was released the earlier 1948. Then Roberto Rossellini's, there is another film director, Italian film director, Roberto Rossellini, Rome Open City, which came out in the year 1945. Roberto Rossellini's film Rome Open City, which was released in the year 1945, is considered to be the first true neo-realistic film. When asked which is the first neo-realistic Italian film, the answer is Rossellini's Rome Open City. Which came out in the year 1945. It is considered to be the first true, real, neo-realist film. Roberto Gaston Sefero Rossellini was an Italian director, screenwriter, and producer. Rossellini was one of the most prominent directors of the Italian neo-realist cinema. Roberto Rossellini was one of the most prominent, most important directors of the Italian neo-realist cinema. Rome Open City, which was released in the year 1945. Then Stromboli, which was released in 1950. Then Paisan, Paisan came out in the year 1946. Journey to Italy, it was released in 1954. Germany, Year Zero, Germany, Year Zero, which was released in the year 1948. Then Europe, 1951. It came out in the year 1953. Then The Flowers of Saint Francis. The Flowers of Saint Francis. The film came out in the year 1950. 1950 it came out. It was released in the year 1950. Then about Rome Open City, which is considered to be the first true Neo Realist film. The first true Neo Realist film is nothing but Rossellini's Rome Open City. You know, in that film, there is the resistance leader, opposing leader, Luigi Ferrari. Luigi Ferrari is pursued by Fritz Bergman. Fritz Bergman, a German intelligence officer. He was pursued by the resistance leader was pursued. He was pursued for being caught by Fritz Bergman. He was a German intelligence officer. Then you know this intelligence officer wants the name of father in the underground movement. Others, he wants the name of, he wants to enlist the names of other underground fighters, other members of the underground movement. And our Ferrari enlists the help of a sympathetic priest, Don Pietro Pellegrini. Don Pietro Pellegrini is the name of a priest of whom Ferrari enlists some help. Ferrari enlists the help of sympathetic priest Don Pietro Pellegrini to pass on funds to the fighters, pass on money to the fighters in case he is captured. In case he is captured by the intelligence officer or the police. But accidentally, he is betrayed by a former lover. Like our Kayangalam name, he is betrayed by a former lover. ആരെയാണ് ചതിക്കുന്നത്? പോലീസിന്റെ പിടിയിലാകപ്പെടുത്താൻ സഹായിക്കുന്നത് a former lover, lady love. Helps the police officers to capture. That is the plot of the film. Then the term Neo Realism was first attached to films in 1943. The term was used to the Italian films in the year 1943. The term Neo Realism was first attached to the films in 1943 by Antonio Petronetti, the script writer of Visconti's film. He was the script writer of Visconti's film. Listen to me, the term Neo-Realism was first given to films or attached to films in 1943 by Antonio Petronetti, the script writer of Visconti's film. Rossellini envisioned Neo-Realism. Rossellini, our Roberto Rossellini envisioned, he visualized, he considered Neo-Realism as moral and aesthetic cinema. According to him, Neo-Realistic films were moral and aesthetic films. Or in other words, we can say, Rossellini envisioned Neo-Realism as moral and aesthetic cinema. Then Luchino Visconti, then our Roberto Rossellini, and another important figure, another important filmmaker in the history of Italian films, that is Vittorio De Sica. Vittorio De Sica. Please remember this name. It is an important, prominent name in the history of Italian films, Vittorio De Sica. So these three film directors, these three film personalities, one Luchino Visconti, Roberto Rossellini, and Vittorio De Sica were the pioneers of this Italian neo-realist movement. They were the pioneers or forerunners of this neo-realist movement. Who are the three film personalities that were the pioneers of the Italian neo-realist movement? Lucchino Visconti, Roberto Rossellini, and Vittorio De Sica were the pioneers of this movement. Then remember the name Vittorio De Sica. Vittorio De Sica was an Italian director and actor and a leading figure in the Neo Realist movement. He was, of course, a leading figure in the Neo Realist movement. Four of Vittorio De Sica's films won Academy Awards. They were able to win Academy Awards. Bicycle Thieves, his most important film, his most important appreciated film is Bicycle Thieves, which was released in the year 1948, which is the film Bicycle Thieves, a noteworthy film. You know, those students of film, those are interested in film studies should necessarily watch the film Bicycle Thieves, which was released in the year 1948. Even now, this film is appreciated by the film lovers. Bicycle Thieves. Then Umberto D, which came out in the year 1952, maybe his last film, Umberto D. Shoeshine. Another film by Vittorio De Sica is Shoeshine. Came out in the year 1946. Two Women came out in the year 1960. Marriage, Italian Style. Marriage, Italian Style is a film which was released in the year 1964. Then Yesterday, Today and Tomorrow. Yesterday, Today and Tomorrow, which was released in the year 1968. This title appeared in almost all regional movies or the movies elsewhere. Yesterday, Today and Tomorrow. It was a film by Vittorio De Sica that came out in the year 1968. Then Miracle in Milan. Milan is an Italian city. Miracle in Milan, which came out in the year 1951. Then about Bicycle Thieves, a film which we have to study and watch in a critical way. Bicycle Thieves. In the film, an unemployed Ricky is elated. Ricky becomes extremely happy when he finally finds work. His work is hanging posters. Hanging posters means pasting posters in the walls and all. And for the purpose, he requires a ladder, and for traveling along the roads, he requires a vehicle. And the most common vehicle is bicycle he requires. And he thinks that by this profession, he may be able to support his family. Which is the job that Rico gets, pasting or hanging posters around the wartime road. His wife Maria sells the family's bed linens. Bed linens means bed clothes. For raising money for getting back the bicycle from the pawn shop, she sells all the family's bed clothes to retrieve Antonio's bicycle from the pawn shop. You know, the bicycle is pawned because of when he faced the financial crisis, he pawned the bicycle for supporting his family. So it has to be retrieved. For retrieving the bicycle which has been pawned in a pawn shop, you know, the woman, his wife, sells all the family's bed linens, bed clothes, so that he can take the job. However, disaster strikes when Antonio's bicycle is stolen. And you know, when he reached the pawn shop, he finds that his bicycle is stolen by somebody. And his new job is doomed unless he can find the thief. Unless he is able to find the thief and get back the bicycle, he is not able to do the new. He is not able to enter the new profession unless and until the thief is located, the thief is found out. Then with the help of his lively son, Bruno. His son's name is Bruno. With the help of his lively son Bruno, Antonio combs through the city. Combs through means searches thoroughly. Antonio combs, C-O-M-B-S, combs through. It is a phrase which means searches thoroughly, combs through the city, growing increasingly desperate for justice. Nobody else, even police officials, ridicules him. Then finally, on their way home, they were walking near a football stadium. They were walking near a football stadium. Antonio sees an unattended bicycle. And suddenly, out of his impulsiveness, he jumps on it. He instructs Bruno to take the tram at a stop nearby. Bruno, go. You immediately go and wait for me at the next station. You enter this tram. But the lively son Bruno misses the tram. The child is stunned. He gets a shock of his life. He is shocked to see that his father is pursued and surrounded by people and pulled down from the bicycle. As Antonio is taken to the police station, Antonio has stolen a bicycle for pursuing his job. There was no other choice. But he was caught red-handed. Then he is pulled down from the bicycle, and as Antonio is taken to the police station, the bicycle owner notices Bruno. Bruno in mental agony, he stands there in mental agony because his father is going to be imprisoned for theft. He did so out of impulsiveness. And looking at the facial expressions and sadness of the small child, the bicycle owner, what does he do? The bicycle owner notices Bruno, and in a moment of compassion, tells the others to release Antonio Rico. His full name is Antonio Rico. He asks others to release or set free Antonio Rico. So this is a story. This is the plot of Bicycle Thieves. Bicycle Thieves by De Sica. The fascist rule in Italy had imposed certain restrictions upon the film industry. When the fascist regime, fascist administration or rule has come in Italy, it had imposed certain restrictions. It had imposed some restrictions upon film industry. Italy fascist ഭരണം. Film industry കുറെ നിയന്ത്രണങ്ങൾ അവർ ഏർപ്പെടുത്തി. The fascist rule in Italy had imposed certain restrictions upon the film industry. The first fascist regime was established by, the name, Benito Mussolini. The first fascist regime or rule or administration was established by Benito Mussolini in Italy in the year 1925. 1925, remember the year. It is a part of history. 1925, fascism was introduced or established in Italy. The term fasci comes from. The term fasci comes from an Italian term for bundle of sticks. It means a bundle of sticks. Fasci means a bundle of sticks. That was symbol for strength and unity. This bundle of sticks or fasci was a symbol of strength and unity. Fascists believed in single party or one party. That is totalitarian government. They preferred a totalitarian government. They believed in a single party. Fascist regime believed, fascist rulers believed in a totalitarian control of a nation with its economy. They wanted to have a totalitarian control of a nation with its economy. Then it allowed a filtered kind of production which promoted an Italy which was far different from reality. The fascist regime allowed a filtered kind of production everywhere, not only in the film field, in every kind of production. Fascist government allowed only a filtered kind of production, which promoted or developed an Italy which was far from or far different from reality. ഫാഷിസ്റ്റ് ഗവൺമെൻറ് എല്ലാം ഒരു അരിക്കൽ പ്രക്രിയയിലൂടെയാണ് എല്ലാ പ്രൊഡക്ഷനും ഒരു അരിക്കൽ പ്രക്രിയയിലൂടെ കൊണ്ടുപോകുന്നത്. അവർ യഥാർത്ഥമായ പട്ടിണി നിറഞ്ഞ ഇറ്റലിയെ കാണിക്കാൻ ഉദ്ദേശിച്ചിരുന്നില്ല. എല്ലാം കവറപ്പ് ചെയ്ത് അരിച്ച് കാണിക്കാനാണ് ഉദ്ദേശിച്ചിരുന്നത് ഫാഷിസ്റ്റ് റഷ്യ. ആൻഡ് നാച്ചുറലി ക്രൈം ആൻഡ് ഇമ്മൊറാലിറ്റി were not allowed to be portrayed. In films, the fascist government did not allow to portray crime and immorality. Crime and immorality were not allowed to be portrayed on screen. The middle class metrodramas, the middle class films were called metrodramas, otherwise known as white telephone movies. The metrodramas were also known as white telephone movies. They were comedies. They were the imitation of American comedies. You know, the middle class enjoyed white telephone movies that were the fashion of the time. White telephone movies were the fashion of the time. You know, Telephone Bianchi. It was called a Telephone Bianchi. Telephone Bianchi films were made in Italy in 1930s. Telephone films or white telephone films or Telephone Bianchi. In Italian term, to use Italian term, it is called Telephone Bianchi. Such films were made in Italy in 1930s in imitation of American comedies of the time. In spite of these situations, in spite of these restrictions by the fascist regime, in spite of these limitations introduced by the fascist government, some filmmakers took a fame, moral and aesthetic stance against fascism. Some filmmakers used the film as a powerful medium to expose the hollowness and meaninglessness of the fascist regime. Some filmmakers took a fame, moral and aesthetic. Aesthetic means pertaining to beauty. Stance means attitude. There is a difference between stand and stance. Stand means our idea or opinion. Stance means stance means our attitude. You know, see, what did some filmmakers do? Some filmmakers took a fame, moral and aesthetic stance against fascism. Neo Realism actually sprouted. Sprouted means developed or came out. Mulachu. Neo Realism sprouted as a result of those restrictions. Actually, when we examine the history of Neo Realistic movement, we can see that Neo Realism sprouted as a result of those restrictions which curtailed, which reduced, which prevented their freedom of expression. When the filmmakers found that their freedom of expression was curtailed by the fascist regime, they took a strong stance against it. This came out, this developed, this sprouted the Neo Realist movement in Italian films. You know, Neo Realism sprouted as a result of those restrictions which curtailed means restrained, cut down. Curtail means cut down their freedom of expression. French poetic realism we studied earlier. You know, in our earlier class we studied French poetic realism. French poetic realism had a tremendous impact. You know, French poetic realism had a tremendous influence. upon the emergence of Italian Neo Realism. See, Lucchino Visconti, our Lucchino Visconti earlier worked as an apprentice to Jean Reno. Jean Reno, you remember Jean Reno, the filmmaker, the film director of the films The Grand Illusion, and another important film, another most important film, which is it, The Grand Illusion, and also another important film, he studied it. You know that, see, Visconti, our Lucchino Visconti earlier worked as an apprentice to Jean Reno, a French filmmaker we studied, and hence he was exposed to, as he was working with Jean Reno, he was exposed to the tenets. He was exposed, or he had a full acquaintance with the tenets or principles of French poetic realism. French poetic realism. The Postman Always Rings Twice is a successful crime thriller which was published in 1934. The novel was successful and notorious upon publication. Upon publication, the novel at the same time simultaneously became successful and notorious. It is regarded as one of the most important crime novels of the 20th century. The novel is a mix of sexuality and violence. This novel inspired the film Obsession, which came out in the year 1942. The movie Obsession was, of course, an attempt to defy the decrees of decorum and propriety. We can consider the movie Obsession to be an attempt to defy or neglect the decrees of decorum. Decorum means good behavior. And propriety. Propriety means conforming to accepted standards or obeying. Obeying or showing obedience to accepted standards. അപ്പോൾ ഇത് രണ്ടിനെയും നിരാകരിക്കാനുള്ളൊരു ശ്രമമാണ് ഒബ്സഷൻ എന്ന് പറയുന്ന മൂവി നടത്തിയത്. The movie Obsession was an attempt to defy the decrees of decorum and propriety. Propriety means conformity or obedience to accepted standards. The movie Obsession was an attempt to defy the decrees of decorum and propriety on screen by portraying sex and violence. Then another film by Visconti. Another film by Visconti is The Earth Trembles. The Earth Trembles. Italian title is The Earth Trembles, came out in the year 1948. The Italian title is La Terra Trema. La Terra Trema. See, the plot is in a small Sicilian village. The Valastra family continues the village long fishing tradition. They were belonging to the long fishing tradition. Valastra family. In a small Sicilian village, the Valastra family continues the village's long fishing tradition. Despite poverty and hard work, you know, the people who are suffering from poverty and hard work. Despite poverty and hard work, the village accepts its lot. The village and villagers accepts their lot. They are resigning. They have learned to resign to their lot or fate. അവരുടെ വിധിയുമായി പൊരുത്തപ്പെടാൻ, പട്ടിണിയും പരിവട്ടവും ആ വിധിയുമായി പൊരുത്തപ്പെടാൻ ആ സിസിലിയൻ ഗ്രാമത്തിലെ ആളുകൾ തീരുമാനിച്ചു. അവർ ഈ മത്സ്യബന്ധന തൊഴിലാളികളാണ്. അവരങ്ങ് തീരുമാനിച്ചു. But what happens when Antonio Valastra returns from the war? A sudden change occurs. Suddenly, you know, the tensions mount up. Tensions mount up in the village when Antonio Valastra returns from the war. So, Antonio Valastra, he becomes the hero in the locality. He is able to alienate some of the villagers with his suggestions for altering their working habits. He advocates the fishermen to alter or change their working habits. When Antonio challenges the actions of the fish merchants, he also raises his voices against the fish merchants. Then what happens? Then he is arrested and jailed, he is imprisoned. That is the plot of the film. As the fascist rule came to an end, the fascist rule came to an end in Italy by 1943. As the fascist rule regime came to an end in 1943, a small group of filmmakers, got strength. They attempted to portray the truth regarding the impoverished conditions. Impoverished means poverty-stricken. Poverty conditions or poverty-stricken conditions of the working class and of the urban population. What did some of the filmmakers do after the fascist regime came to an end? Some of the filmmakers attempted to portray, picturize the truth regarding the impoverished conditions, poverty-stricken, pathetic conditions of the working class of Italy and of the urban population, city population. They believed in the capacity of cinema as a medium to convey the truth. Such filmmakers believed, they had a strong belief in the capacity of cinema as a medium to convey the truth. The filmmakers tried to emphasize that cinema should be used for social criticism and conscience raising purposes. അവരുടെ അഭിപ്രായത്തിൽ സിനിമ എന്ന് പറയുന്ന മാധ്യമം എന്തിനു വേണ്ടി ഉപയോഗിക്കണം? സമൂഹത്തെ വിമർശിക്കുവാനും സാമൂഹ്യ പ്രശ്നങ്ങളെ വിമർശിക്കുവാനും അതുപോലെ തന്നെ ആളുകളുടെ മനസ്സാക്ഷി ഉണർത്തുവാനും സിനിമ എന്ന മാധ്യമത്തെ ശരിക്കും ഉപയോഗിക്കാൻ കഴിയും എന്ന് അവർ വിശ്വസിച്ചിരുന്നു. They earnestly believed that cinema should be used as a medium for social criticism and conscience raising purposes. മനസ്സാക്ഷിയെ ഉണർത്തുന്ന ഉദ്ദേശ്യങ്ങൾ. These films, the filmmakers of these films, they are actually the Neo Realistic films. These films concentrated on poverty and unemployment. The themes of these films were poverty and unemployment, which were widespread in the post-war Italy. Poverty and unemployment were widespread after the Second World War in Italy. Neo Realistic films were small budget films. These kinds of Neo Realistic films, the films which held a mirror to the realistic Italy, that means the films which concentrated on the poverty and unemployment which were widespread in Italy, in the post-war Italy. The neo-realistic films were small budget films which employed location shooting. They did not rent out studios and huge settings, huge Bahubali-like settings. They never had. They employed location shooting. They preferred outdoor shooting. They shot their scenes in locations, in apt, correct locations, rather than studio shooting. A large number of non-professional actors were involved. They selected or the filmmakers chose non-professional actors, not stars. Thus the films became inexpensive. And also non-professional actors would give their maximum input in acting. So they were particular to select non-professional actors, and they attempted to bring the reality in language and dialogue by retaining the dialects, vernacular languages. They also used the vernacular languages in their films. In our Malayalam movies also, in so many movies, they use vernacular languages. The best example is the award-winning Chemmin. In the Chemmin, the characters used the dialect used by the fishermen or the fishers. So that is the best example of using dialects. Amaram, another example. And so many films. So many films. We have so many films acted by superstars and others speaking Trishur dialect and far remote Thiruvananthapuram dialect. Such films we have. And also these neo-realist filmmakers use the natural dialects, that because they wanted to use real language and real dialogues in films. And also these neo-realist films were shot in natural light, natural sunlight, and also they followed the documentary style. In the narration of the story, they followed the documentary style. These films were examples of documentation. D. Sika's, you remember D. Sika? D. Sika's 1948 film, The Bicycle Thieves. The Bicycle Thieves is a perfect example of this type of neo-realist film. You know, D. Sika's 1948 film, The Bicycle Thieves is a perfect example of this type of film. This type of film means neo-realism. And Roberto Rossellini's Rome Open City, which came out in the year 1945, was based on the real events. The film was actually, the story was based on the real events that the Romans had from 1943 to 40 years, the 1 year's time. Those real events were taken, scripted by Rossellini in his film Rome, Open City. Then D. Sika's another film, Shoe Shine, which was released in the year 1948. The plot of the film is the orphan Pascal, Pasquale, Pascal, and his best friend Giuseppe. Pascal and Giuseppe squirrel away means save, hide. Squirrel away their money they earn from shining shoes in Rome. It is a story, that is the plot of the film Shoe Shine by D. Sika, which was released in the year 1948. And Giuseppe Di Santi's film, another filmmaker, another Italian filmmaker, Giuseppe Di Santi. Giuseppe Di Santi's Bitter Rice, published in the year 1946, came out in the year, released in the year 1946. Also fall into the category of neo-realist film. The Bitter Rice by Giuseppe Di Santi. It also falls into the category of neo-realist film. In that film, Francisca and Walter, Francisca, the wife, and Walter, her husband, they are criminally inclined couple. They do a lot of thieves and they are criminals. They are living in becoming antisocial elements. They are criminally inclined couple who accidentally part ways while on the run from law. While they were running away, fleeing without being arrested, they part their ways. Luckily, Francisca, the woman, the wife, she falls in with a group of peasant women and hopes to hide out among them. She hides out among the peasant women that she finds. You know, as the peasant women toil in the rice fields of Po Valley. To her surprise, in her cover, while she is hiding there, while she is hiding among the women, she discovers a simple but satisfying life filled with hard work and friendship. She finds that See, far from being an antisocial element, this life of hard work and this life of friendship is far, far better. To her surprise, while she is living in the cover, she is living in her hideout, she discovers a simple but satisfying life filled with hard work and friendship. So when Walter, the husband, resurfaces, when he comes back, their union doesn't go quite well, as the husband had expected. There were frictions and fissures in their relationship. Their relationship as man and wife doesn't go smoothly because of the pleasant experience she had while she was in her hideout among the peasant women. Now let us see what contributed to the end of the neo-realistic films in Italy. What was the reason for the failure of neo-realistic films? The rise of conservatism. Conservatism means conservative Catholicism. The rise of conservative Catholicism in Italian politics and the declining of popular anti-fascism. Anti-fascism, the movement against fascism was weakened, or it waned, or it disappeared by 1940s, by the year 1940s. So, these were the two factors which contributed to the disappearance of neo-realistic Italian films. One is the rise of conservatism in Italian politics, and other is the waning or disappearance or decreasing of popular anti-fascism, the movement against fascism in the period 1940s, contributed to the decline of the neo-realist school. The neo-realist school declined because of these two factors. Then the appointment of Giulio Andretti as director of performing arts. The fascist government appointed Giulio Andretti as director of performing arts, and his appointment increased the speed of the decline of the school, because he denied screening rights to those films which projected a bad image of Italy. He never allowed to project those Italian films which projected or showed or exhibited a bad image of Italy. So, his appointment as the director of performing arts in Italy increased the speed of the decline of this neo-realist school, because he had denied screening rights to those films which projected a bad image of Italy. Then De Sica's box office failure. Umberto D. As I told you here, De Sica's last film. Umberto D. The famous director of Bicycle Thieves. She saw this film as an utter box office failure. On the terms of collection, it was a total failure. That is what is box office failure. Means collection failure. Failure in collecting. De Sica's box office failure of Umberto D. Box office means actually the cash counter. Box office hit means hit in the sense of collection. Box office failure means the failure in terms of collection. De Sica's box office failure of Umberto D in the year 1952 marked the end of neo-realism. It marked the end of neo-realist cinema movement. That is the plot of Umberto D by De Sica. That is De Sica's Umberto D's plot. When elderly pensioner, Umberto is an elderly pensioner, means who is having old age pension. In our state also we are having old age pensioners. A person above the age of 60 is liable to get old age pension. Now it is 1,400 rupees minimum, and after a particular age, it will increase to be 1,500. So elderly pensioner, what is his name? Umberto Domenico. That is why Umberto D. അങ്ങനെയാണ് അംബർട്ടോ ഡി എന്നുള്ള പേര് കിട്ടുന്നത്. അംബർട്ടോ ഡൊമിനിക്കോ, ഹിസ് റിയൽ നെയിം ഈസ് അംബർട്ടോ ഡൊമിനിക്കോ ഫെരാരി. The hero is Umberto Domenico Ferrari. Returns to his boarding house, rented house, from a protest. He had participated in a protest calling for a hike, a rise in old age pensions. You know, the old aged people assembled and they had a protest for a hike, for a rise in old age pension. He was coming from that protest. He was coming up from that struggle to his boarding school. Then his landlady meets him and demands the 15,000 lire. Lira, you know, Italian currency. 15,000 lire by the end of the month. By the end of the month, he should certainly pay the dues. How much is his dues? 15,000 lire. Otherwise, he and his small dog will be turned out to the street. They will be kicked out. So what happens? Unable to make the money in time. Umberto faces illness. He pretends to be ill and wants to get sent to a hospital. Sent to a hospital as a patient. For escaping the debt. That is how he plans to go away to a hospital. And when he goes away to the hospital, he gives his beloved small dog to the landlady's abandoned maid. She is pregnant also. Abandoned servant maid for temporary safekeeping. And he goes pointing, I will come back and take my dog back and I will pay all the rent. Then she asked the servant maid to keep the dog in his absence. So the dog is kept in the temporary safe custody of the pregnant and abandoned maid of the landlady. That is the plot of the film Umberto Domenico Ferrari. Italian Neo Realism had influenced many emerging national cinemas. Italian Neo Realism had influenced so many national cinemas in various other nations, including Latin American and the Indian New Wave cinema. Italian cinemas had a deep impact on the Latin American New Wave cinema and the Indian New Wave cinema. The influence of Neo Realism can be traced in the later films of Italy also. The influence of Neo Realism can be traced in the later films of Italy. In the post Neo Realistic period of Italy also we can see the influence of the Neo Realism, including the historical films. There is a historic film by Visconti. Visconti's historic film Senso, S-E-N-S-O, Senso, which was released in the year 1954. Senso. And mafia thrillers. There were mafia thriller films like Salvatore Giuliano, directed by Francesco Rosi in the year 1962. Francesco Rosi is the director of the film. Salvatore Giuliano. Then The Day of the Owl, another Italian film which had been influenced. The film that had been influenced by the neo-realistic film is The Day of the Owl, directed by Domiani in the year 1967. Domiani directed this film and it was released. Which a film? The Day of the Owl was released in the year 1967. And also there were conspiracy films like Gomorrah. It is a conspiracy film directed by Matti Garoni. in the year 2008. This film also had been influenced by Neo Realistic film, which film Gommara, as he directed by Mattia Garoni. Then about Senso, the historical film, a wanton Contessa, a countess, Italian countess, Profi. A wanton means, it is the meaning of a violent countess, Italian countess. She lives in Italy and she betrays an unscrupulous Austrian officer in 1860s Venice. See, it is set in the 1860s Venice. You know, the countess or the countess betrays an unscrupulous, a cruel Austrian officer. That is the theme, that is the plot of the film. Which film? Senso, directed by Visconti's film. Visconti's film Senso. Visconti. Director is Visconti. And Salvatore Giuliano, see, it is a 1962 Italian film. 1962 Italian film directed by Francesco Rosi. The director is Francesco Rosi. Shot in a neo-realistic documentary. It is a film adopted the documentary style. It is a film shot in a neo-realistic documentary. Non-linear style. Non-linear means disjointed. The shots are disjointed, like that of a montage. Non-linear style. It was shot in, there was no coherency of a story. It was shot in a non-linear style. Means the film has disjoint scenes. The film follows the lives of those involved with the famous Sicilian bandit, Sicilian robber, Salvatore Giuliano. Salvatore Giuliano is a Sicilian robber. And the film deals with his followers. Salvatore Giuliano, he rose into prominence with the disorder which followed the Allied invasion of Sicily in 1943. During the Second World War, the Allied force attacked Sicily and there was a commotion. There was almost a civil war. And the bandit Salvatore Giuliano almost rose into prominence as a leader. So the film discusses this incident. The French New Wave, we studied the French New Wave and the British New Wave films also owe a lot to the Italian neo-realistic movement. Actually, the French New Wave and the British New Wave films owe much to, they are indebted to this Italian non-realistic films. When we speak about the contemporary Italian filmmakers who were deeply influenced by the Italian neo-realist movement, where the younger generation of filmmakers in Italy, Ermanio Olimi, Michelangelo Antonioni, and Frederick Fellini, an important name. Frederick Fellini were influenced by this movement. Now let us go to a small piece, Iranian cinema. Iran. The capital is Tehran, Iranian cinema. Then, the first Iranian talking film was The Lore Girl. The first Iranian talking film or talkie. A talking film was Lore Girl, directed by the Iranian Parsi filmmaker Ardeshir M. Irani. The film is also known as Iran of Yesterday and Iran of Today. There is a subtitle for the film. The subtitle is like this: Iran of Yesterday and Iran of Today. Which film subtitle? The Lore Girl, which was released in the year 1938. The movie is about Golner, Golner, a young tea house girl. She is working in a tea house who was kidnapped as a child. We should remember she was kidnapped as a child and taken to Loristan, mountain area. Loristan with a clan of bandits. There she is working as a tea house girl. Loristan with a clan, with a group of bandits, robbers, living among the lords, among the native people lords. The leader of the thieves, Goli Khan, Ghollikhan, Goli Khan, is beginning to look at our governor with interest. Now she is a grown-up girl. Now she has become a grown-up girl. He is looking at her with some interest. In the tea house, she meets a young man called Jafar. You know, governor sees a young man called Jafar, who has been sent to Loristan. You know, the young man is a CID. He has been sent to Loristan by the Iranian government to deal with the problem of banditry, robbers in the area. And you know, naturally the man and girl, Jafar and the girl fall in love and plan to escape together. They plan to escape from the clutches of Goli Khan. Goli Khan catches on to their plans and beats up Jafar. He beats up Jafar and Jafar rejects Khan's offer to join among the bandits. Goli Khan wants Jafar to join. Among them, he refuses. So he is kidnapped and imprisoned. Governor helps him escape. And the couple, they attempt to flee. They attempt to run away to a safer place. Pursued by the bandits follow them under the head of Goli Khan. The bandits pursue or follow. Jafar and Golnar are nearly captured. They are about to be captured. But Jafar kills several bandits. Among the robbers, Jafar kills so many of them, including Goli Khan. Fearing revenge from the remaining gang, remaining bandits, they flee to India and settle in Bombay for some time. The lovers later returned to their homeland, Iran, when they learned that a new government has brought land order back in the country. Religious groups protested against the spread of Western morals. You know, Iran being an Islamic country, they never allowed the spread of Western morals through the screening of US and European films. Being an Islamic country, they had a restraint on the Western morals. Religious groups protested against the spread of Western morals through the screening of US and European films. As a result, censorship and block on imports of foreign films were introduced. So in Iran, censorship was introduced, and also there was a block of import films was also introduced. A block on import of the foreign films which contain immoral things, sex and violence. They banned such films. A new wave of social art films. At this time, or we can say by the late 1960s, a new wave of social art films emerged during the late 1960s. The themes of such films were rural, urban migration, people migrating from rural areas to urban areas, migration from village to city. The themes of such films were rural, urban migration, urbanization, Nagaravalkaranam, and modernization. And the year 1983 saw a shift in the government policy. There was a shift or change in the government policy which promoted an Iranian national cinema which portrayed a national, local and Islamic traditions and values. You know, there was a shift in the governmental policy in the year 1983, and this shift saw the government policy which promoted which promoted an Iranian national cinema. They promoted, they gave all the help, financial help, governmental help was available for the introduction of Iranian national cinema, which portrayed the Iranian national cinema portrayed or pictured or showed or exhibited national, local and Islamic traditions and values. By the 1990s, by the year 1990s, there occurred a surge, a large production, a surge in domestic film production. There was a surge or unprecedented emergence of domestic film production by 1990s. A large number of internationally acclaimed films came out under the banner of New Iranian Cinema. Under the banner of New Iranian Cinema, a large number of award-winning, internationally acclaimed films came out, and Iran has emerged the highest producer of films in the Middle East. And during those times, Iran has emerged. Iran has come out as the highest film producer in the Middle East. Middle East means Western Asia, Egypt and Turkey. They are including Western Asia, Egypt and Turkey, and Iran is the part of Western Asia. And the country Iran became the highest producer of films in the Middle East. Women, gender and politics have been the major concerns of the Iranian cinema. The major themes of the Iranian cinema were women, gender and politics, moral dilemmas and gender relations in marital and family relationships in Iran also provided material for thought-provoking Iranian films. Moral dilemmas, gender relations in marital and family relationship in Iran also provided material for thought-provoking movies. Iranian cinema is widely recognized today not merely as a distinctive national cinema. Nowadays, national films, national cinematic level and national themes have actually disappeared. Nowadays, Iranian cinema is widely recognized or approved today not as merely a distinctive national cinema, but as one of the most innovative in the world. It is a novel film. Iranian filmmakers have they have brought about a new trend in filmmaking. Their films are innovative. Nowadays, the films have become innovative. The filmmakers have created a new trend in films. Great Iranian filmmakers include Dariush Shokov, Bahman Gobadi, Abbas Kiarostami, Majid Majidi, Mohsen Mak, Mutaf, etc. So these are the modern filmmakers who are who had got worldwide acclamations. Who are such filmmakers? The great Iranian filmmakers include Dariush Shokov, Bahman Gobadi, Abbas Kiarostami, Majid Majidi, remember these names, Abbas Kiarostami and Majid Majidi, Mohsen Mak Mutaf. Dariush Shokov, he is an Iranian artist, film director, a writer and film producer based in Germany. Then Hitler's Grave, his important films are Hitler's Grave, which was released in 2011, Breathful, 2007, is Sudden, 2006, Seven Servants, which was released in the year 1996. Then Bahman Gobadi, he was an Iranian Kurdish filmmaker. He belongs to the new wave of Iranian cinema. He belongs to the new wave, old new wave of Iranian cinema. A Time for Drunken, which was released in 2000. Turtles Can Fly and Half Moon. Half Moon published, came out released in the year 2006. Half Moon. No One Knows About Persia, 2009. Reno Season, 2018. Marooned in Iraq, 2008. These are his famous films. Famous films by Bohman Gobadi. Then Abbas Kiarostami. Abbas Kiarostami. Remember this name. He is an Iranian film director, screenwriter, poet, photographer, film producer, etc. And he wrote some books. He wrote some books on films, which the students of film studies usually study. Lessons with Kiarostami. One of his famous books is Lessons with Kiarostami, and another, Walking with the Wind. Walking with the Wind is another famous book. And his famous movies are Taste of Cherry. Taste of Cherry, released in the year 1997. Close Up, 1980. Where is the Friend's Home? Where is the Friend's Home? 1982. Certified Copy, 2010. And another important film, 10, 2002. 10. In a recent university question, there was a 1 mark question. Name the director of the film 10. Abbas Kiarostami. 10 to 2002. The Wind Will Carry Us, released in the year 1999. Through the Olive Trees, released in 1994. Then about Majid Majidi, you might have known this important film personality because I hope you have studied an extract of his screenplay in your 10th standard. Majid Majidi. Iranian film director, producer, screenwriter, who started his film career as an actor. Majid Majidi started his film career as an actor. He started his career in the film world as an actor. Majidi has also touched on many themes. He has touched on many themes and genres. And he was numerous. He won numerous international awards. He was able to accumulate a lot of international awards for his films. His famous films are The Children of Heaven. Remember these titles. The Children of Heaven, released 1997. Then The Caller of Paradise, 1999. Muhammad, 2005. Muhammad. Beyond the Clouds, 2017. Muhammad was released in the year 2015. Beyond the Clouds, 2017. Then The Song of the Sparrows, 2008. The Willow Tree, 2005. The Father, 1996, etc. These are his important films. Then Mohsin Malbaf. He was also an Iranian film director, film editor and producer. He is a famous film personality. He is an Iranian film director, film editor and producer. He has made more than 20 feature films. And won some 50 awards. He was able to win some 50 awards. So, Mohsin Malbaf, he was able to win some 50 awards. and he was such a film personality. These are the recent or contemporary Iranian filmmakers, and they had a lot of lessons from the earlier filmmakers. So today we did two chapters, the Italian Neo Realism and Iranian cinema. Iranian cinema. Study these two chapters well and write the answers for the questions I am going to give you.